Hello, B Nation. Dr. Frances Richards here, and we have an exciting opportunity for you to make your voices heard and win big at Black Entrepreneur Experience Podcast, aka Beepodcast. We're constantly striving to bring you the most engaging and insightful content, but we need your help to make it even better. We want to get to know you, our incredible listeners, on a deeper level. That's why we've launched a short survey to gather your valuable feedback. By taking just a few moments to complete our survey, you'll have the chance to win an Amazon gift card. To view the contest rules and complete the survey, please visit our official website at drfrancesrichards.com/survey. The survey is also in our show notes. Hurry though, the contest deadline is approaching fast. Don't miss out on this exciting opportunity to give us your feedback and win fantastic prizes. Head over to drfrancesrichards.com, survey now, and thank you for your valuable input. The survey is also in the show notes. Thank you.
Welcome to the Black Entrepreneur Experience Podcast. Inside the business, buzz, and brilliance of Black entrepreneurs. Here's your host, Dr. Frances Richards.
What happens in Vegas goes all over the world on Black Entrepreneur Experience, episode number 395. Thank you for joining us as we elevate the Black Entrepreneur Experience by interviewing CEOs, thought leaders, innovative thinkers, and Black entrepreneurs across the globe. I'm your host, Dr. Frances Richards. How do you overcome severe stuttering and speech impediment to become an award-winning TEDx speaker, speech coach, and trainer? Well, Dr. Derrick L. Noble is here to drop the mic and share his story. Welcome, Dr. Derrick Noble.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. I've given our audience such a brief bio. Why don't you fill in the gaps and share with our audience what you'd like them to know about you and your business?
Okay. Well, I always like to give props to my hometown. I was born and raised in Little Rock, Arkansas, youngest of 8 children. I had a severe stutter and a lisp when I was a child. In fact, I would be in class for the first 15 minutes of the day, and then they would dismiss me to go down the hallway where I would spend the rest of the day with a speech therapist. My speech patterns were so bad, I really couldn't function in class. So I spent most of the day with a therapist. And my life changed one day when my second grade teacher, whose name I will not call, but my second grade teacher asked everyone to come up individually in front of the class. She said, "Tell everybody your name and tell everybody what you want to be when you grow up." Now, Dr. Frances, I knew I wanted to be a teacher, but I also knew I couldn't talk. And I didn't want to get up in front of everybody because every time I tried to say my name, I would stutter and stammer. And this time was no different. I got up in front of the class, stuttered and stammered. It took me forever to say, I want to be a teacher. By the time I finally got it out, my teacher was laughing at me. And the rest of the students were laughing at me too. And here's what she said. And she thought she was destroying me, but what she actually did was build me up. She said, "Derrick, you'll never be a teacher because you can't talk." So I ran out of class in tears. I ran down to my speech therapist, and in my own little second grade way, I said, "I'm not going to be laughed at anymore. We've got to work on this." So long story short, my speech therapist started working with me every day. I'm sure the school district did not pay her extra for this, but she came early every morning. She left late every afternoon. And she said to me, "One day, the people who are laughing at you will be applauding you." 2 months later, after having been laughed out of class, no joke, I participated in the NAACP speech competition in Little Rock for elementary school students. I won first place. I recited the Martin Luther King Jr. speech, "I Have a Dream," because my speech therapist had worked with me on it. So I got this big trophy. I went back to school and put it on my teacher's desk, the teacher who laughed at me. And I said to her the words my mother told me to say: "Next time you laugh at a child, you remember me." And here we are.
That is an amazing story. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you for letting me share it.
Tell us what your business, who is your ideal client?
My ideal client is the name of my business is the Derrick Noble Group. My ideal client is a leader who is relatively new to leadership, typically a year or less in leadership. Although I do work with seasoned leaders a lot, but my primary client is the new leader who has never been a leader before, and they don't quite know where to start. They know they need to do some things to make proud the people who hired them, but they may not quite know where to start. They get there and they see maybe 20 or 21 different areas that need some attention, but they don't quite know what to do first. So I work with leaders to help them to navigate those first few months well. I also help work with those new leaders to help them to overcome the stress. As I know you and your listeners know, there's a lot of stress and strain associated with being the leader, whether you are the CEO or the mid-level manager, supervisor, whatever the case may be, for profit, not for profit. There's a lot of stress and strain that comes along with being a leader. What a lot of leaders lack that I help them with is they have the skills to be a great employee, which is what got them to the attention of whoever hired them to be a leader. They have the skills to be a great employee, but those skills don't necessarily translate into leading other employees. So I help them to navigate that landscape and to become effective leaders more quickly.
What is your leadership style?
My leadership style, that's a good question. I was just teaching about leadership styles not too long ago with one of my clients. I would describe my leadership style as the inspirer. The inspirational leadership style is one that wants to help people to understand that they already have within them some great leadership abilities. My job as their leadership coach is to pull out of them what's already there. I'm not the leader, and I don't necessarily have a problem with leaders who are like this, but I'm not the leader who likes to come in as if they have all the answers. I know some leaders say, okay, you hired me and you're paying me big bucks, so shut up and listen to me and I'll guide you to the promised land. I don't necessarily have a problem with leaders like that because some people need that. That's not my style, though. My style is much more of a coaching style. And for those who are familiar with coaching, what coaches do is that they equip you and they bring out of you what's already in you. And sometimes that means to convince you that it's in you in the first place. I like to see people's self-confidence rise as a result of working with me. And I love to hear them say toward the end of the process, you know what? I didn't know I had it in me. Thank you for believing in me. So that's my leadership style. I pull out of you what you didn't know was there.
I want you to have a monologue. I want you to name this person, living or not, and this person has inspired you so much.
Wow.
Who is this person and what are you saying to this person?
That is really, really easy. In fact, if you read the introduction to my book, the whole introduction, the book is dedicated to this person. His name was Lionel Ward. He was my principal, my school principal at Wrightsville Intermediate School in Little Rock, Arkansas, 5th and 6th grade. He was the first Black principal I had. He was the first Black male educator of color who took interest in me. So Mr. Ward, I was a stutterer, as I said, and so I got picked on a lot. I was bullied a lot because of my stutter, and I wasn't a very big kid. I was rather small, and I had those Coke bottle glasses, so everybody was just always making fun of me and picking on me. So what I did, I worked out a deal with my teachers. I said, okay, I'm always getting picked on the playground. Can I just go to the library and read and just spend recess in the library? Because I didn't like going to recess with everybody else because I didn't fit in. So we got a new principal at the start of the 5th grade year. His name was Lionel Ward. And one day when I was in the library at recess time, Mr. Ward comes into the library and he sees me at the table. And I was reading I'll never forget, I was reading the World Book Encyclopedia, my favorite book. My mother had gotten a set of World Book encyclopedias for us at the house because she knew I loved to read. So I'm in the library reading the encyclopedia, and our new principal, whom I had seen from afar but had never met, walked up to me at the table and said, "Who are you? Why don't I know you? I don't know your name." And as anybody who had authority, as would happen anytime anybody had authority, spoke to me like that, I started crying. I was just a little, fragile little kid. So I started crying, and I felt kind of bad. He put his hand on my shoulder and said, "Oh, okay, don't cry. I know why I don't know you. The reason why I don't know you is because all the students I've gotten to know so far are the troublemakers, and you clearly are not one of those. So tell me why you're in the library instead of at recess, son." So I gave him the whole story about why I was in the library, and he said words to me that I have repeated ever since then. He said, I want you to realize that you are more than your stutter. You are one of the best readers I have in this school. You are more than your stutter. So he started walking the stacks of the library with me, and he started giving me books that he wanted me to read. He said, okay. So he started giving me biographies of famous Black people. The first book, I'll never forget, the first book he put in my hand was a biography of George Washington Carver. Then he gave me a book on Mary McLeod Bethune. Then he gave me a book on Sojourner Truth. He gave me all these Black history books. He was a graduate of Howard University, so Black history was his thing. He gave me all of those books. He told me he wanted me to give him a personal book report. And then to put the cherry on top of the ice cream, the very next day, his voice came over the intercom in my 5th grade classroom. He said, Mrs. K, I want you to send Derrick Noble to my office immediately. Now, I'm thinking I'm in trouble, right? I go to Mr. Ward's office and he hands me a sheet of paper with the school announcements. He said, I need you to read over these announcements and practice them because you're going to read the announcements from now on at the end of the school day. You got 5 minutes. And he gave me the sheet with the announcements. Now, while I'm protesting and telling him I can't talk, how can I read I'm stuttering. And he stopped me again and he said, you are more than your stutter. You're on in 5 minutes. And that first time I read the announcements, I stuttered my way through the announcements, but he was standing behind me, giving me the thumbs up the entire time. Long story short, by 6th grade, I was elected student council president. I was later elected student body president in high school. And every time I won an election or every time I got an award, Mr. Ward was right there. So the book is dedicated to him. He is probably the person who is most singularly responsible for my being where I am. So I thank God for him.
Wow, that's amazing. So you talk about leaders.
Yes.
And a lot is going on in our climate about the quiet quit.
Yes.
And lack of employees.
Yes.
And what advice would you give someone that is leading in this climate now?
Interesting. I just published an article on quiet quitting for Authority Magazine, and they asked the same question. What advice would you give? First, I would say quiet quitting, and I know you know this, quiet quitting is not really a new phenomenon. It just has a new title. People have been doing this for years. People have been, not really giving their best. Sometimes they've, as we say in the business, they've been phoning it in. The first thing I would say to leaders in order to prevent this, first and foremost, the best way to motivate your workforce is to help them see the why behind what they're doing. And I'll unpack that for you a little bit if you want me to. You've got to provide motivation for them. And that motivation comes in the form of helping them to understand the deeper purpose or the why behind what they do. Just real briefly, I'll give you an example. I was working with a school district in Northern California. I have been their trainer for many years now, but the first time I went there, the superintendent of the school district said, Dr. Noble, we're having an issue with our food service workers. We've done some internal surveys and the kids hate going to the cafeteria because the food service workers at all of our schools are just mean. They yell at the kids, they sit down, shut up, eat your food. He said, so I need you before the school year starts to make them a kinder, gentler force of food service workers. So here's what I did. I'll give you the Reader's Digest version of it. I started the day with all of those food service workers asking them, how would you define your job? How would you describe your job? I kid you not. One of them said, we put square pizza, mashed potatoes, and corn on a tray. Can we go home now? And that is no exaggeration. Her idea of her job was square pizza, mashed potatoes, and corn. Now, it took me about 8 hours to get there. I was there with them all day long. But by the end of the day, I asked them the same question. What is your job? And one of them, as a result of our conversation, said, my job is I provide nourishment for students and I help them to become the next group of leaders for our country. Now, that's a far cry from square pizza, mashed potatoes, and corn. I help them to become leaders by nourishing them. The good part about that story, the even better part about that story, is that after I had been done training with them, after I was done training with them, the same school district superintendent who hired me called me back and said, Dr. Noble, what did you do to the cafeteria workers? I said, what do you mean? What did I do? He said, well, they're coming to work earlier. And they have demanded that we give these kids a free breakfast program. In their letter to the school board, they said breakfast is the most important meal of the day, and these children don't eat a proper breakfast, and we need them to be healthy and nourished so they'll be better behaved. So we need to give them a breakfast program. He said, and Dr. Noble, not one of them asked for a raise. What did you do to them? How did you get them to be willing to come early, cook an extra meal, and not ask for more money? And I told him what I'm telling you. I said, I help them to understand the why behind what they're doing. When your employees are phoning it in, when they're quiet quitting, what that really reveals is they don't really understand the purpose, the deeper purpose behind their job. My job as a leader, your job as a leader, is to help the people you lead find that deeper purpose. And when you do that for them, they will motivate themselves. And I like to end the story by saying that those food service workers did get a raise, which I think they deserve, but they were willing to do it without getting one. So the key to quiet quitting is you have to make sure that it's an environment where people understand I'm doing more than answering phones, or I'm doing more than teaching children. I'm preparing the future and making it better. So that's the key to fixing this quiet quitting craze.
So what is your why and your deeper purpose?
Oh, thank you. This has been my mantra since the age of 16. Derrick Noble exists to speak truth into the lives of others, thereby enabling them to change their lives for the better. That's what I'm all about. That's what I've been about since I was a teenager, speaking truth into the lives of other people and helping them to improve their lives for the better, because that's what happened to me. I needed that when I was a child, and my speech therapist and my principal provided that for me, and my mom provided that for me. So my why is I'm all about helping people maybe to see their hidden superpowers that they either don't know that they have or that they have repressed. So I love seeing people blossom and bloom in ways like that.
And
Yes.
what is your superpower?
My superpower is the ability to help people to see them as they should see themselves, to help people to not limit themselves by what other people have said or done to them. And I asked some of my clients what they thought my superpower was. And what I heard from them was something that I didn't realize. They said, Dr. Noble, what you do is that you take lofty, difficult concepts and you break them down in a way that everybody can understand. I recently did a training for a government agency on emotional intelligence, which, big buzzword in the business community now. By the time I got done, people were saying, you know what? I've heard about emotional intelligence. I've read about emotional intelligence, but today was the first time I understood it. So I've been told one of my superpowers is taking lofty concepts and making them easy to understand.
Let's step back a minute. You had talked about your book. Tell
Yes.
our audience the name of your book and how they can purchase your book.
Yes, ma'am. The name of the book is Leadership Launch, Launch, and the subtitle is Essential Skills for New Leaders. I'm very proud of the fact that the foreword was written by Melba Patillo-Beals. For those who do not know, Melba Patillo-Beals is the best-selling author of Warriors Don't Cry, which is her memoir of having been one of the Little Rock Nine. She was one of the first 9 Black students to integrate the high school I graduated from eventually, Little Rock Central. So that happened in 1957. I met her in 1987 when I was student body president, and they came back for the 30-year anniversary. So I'm proud of the fact that she has written the foreword for that book. I'm also proud of the fact that it is an Amazon bestseller. It is available in ebook form and paperback wherever books are sold. You can find it online at Amazon. You can find it online at Barnes & Noble. You can also find it in physical bookstores. And if it's not on the shelf, because it is sold out from a few bookstores, if it's not on the shelf, they can order it for you. So wherever books are sold, you can also find it in libraries. And it's also at my website. If you go to my website, DerrickLewisNoble.com, there is a link to purchase the book there. So it's doing very well. I'm very proud of it.
Talk about your top 2 mentors and influencers and what lessons did they teach you?
My top 2 mentors and influencers. Well, one I've shared already, my principal, Mr. Lionel Ward. So he's number 1. I guess my second, who would fight for the second position? That's probably it would be Sidney Poitier. And I regret the fact that I didn't get a chance to meet him. I was scheduled to meet him before he passed away. Roland Martin was going to, I've known Roland and his wife, Jackie, for many years. Roland was going to set that up for me, and he got sick and ended up passing away. But Sidney Poitier was a model for me as far as speaking was concerned. As I said, I was a stutterer. So whenever his movies came on, he was my mother's favorite actor. So whenever his movies would come on, I would watch them with my mom, and I would mimic his voice, and I would try to speak. I still can't do a great Sidney Poitier, but they called me Mr. Tibbs. He really helped me with enunciation and with speaking and with confidence. And his book, entitled The Measure of a Man, is probably my all-time favorite book. One of the reasons why he's a mentor and a great influence to me is that he talks about all the things that he overcame in order to be successful. When Sidney Poitier first came to the United States, he could barely read. And he auditioned to be an actor with the Negro Theater Company in Harlem, and he couldn't even read the script, and he was kicked out. So he took a job washing dishes, and there was an old Jewish man who worked at the same restaurant. He confided in this man that he couldn't read. So at work, on their breaks, this old man was teaching him how to read. So here is Sidney Poitier wanting to be an actor, got kicked out of acting school because he couldn't read the script. So he starts washing dishes, starts working with somebody to help him to read, and he goes back to the ensemble company. He gets a role, and the rest, as they say, is history. And there are several other situations like that he describes in this book. But the common theme is he did not let his circumstances limit him. And that's something that I've carried with me for many, many years, and I share with other people as well.
There are so many brands and businesses that are dominating. Talk about a brand or a business that's dominating that you admire and why.
That's an interesting question. And people have asked me that question before, and I don't quite know how to answer it. I don't know if there's, well, okay. Let's say Starbucks. Although I'm not a coffee drinker, I love tea and I love juices. But one of the things I love about Starbucks is based upon a personal interaction I had with Starbucks. My Los Angeles home is Baldwin Hills. Near my home, there was a strip mall that had two coffee shops right next to each other. One of them was a Starbucks, and the other one was another coffee shop whose name I won't mention. But it was a rainy day in Los Angeles. I have been to both of these coffee shops several times. They basically had the same menu, same prices, and the same taste. So I'm sitting in my car in the rain, trying to decide which of those two coffee shops, and remember, they're side by side. I'm trying to decide which coffee shop I'm going to go to. Now, while I'm sitting in my car in the rain, an employee from Starbucks comes out with an umbrella, walks up to my car window, taps on the window, motions for me to roll it down. And here's what he says to me. He says, "Good morning, sir. Whenever you're ready, I'll walk you to the door." Thank you. And I see your face there. Where do you think I got my coffee that morning? Starbucks. Exactly. And where do you think I got my coffee from then on? I got it at Starbucks. Now, I guarantee you that young man's job description did not say, "Thou shalt walk the customer to the door in the rain." That was not in his job description, but he did it because he understood what customer service was about. I've had that type of experience with Starbucks over the years. So I guess if I had to name a brand that I really identify with, that's the one. Because I do a lot of teaching and training on the subject of customer service, and I always use Starbucks as an example. So even though I'm not a coffee drinker, and I had a chance to hear an interview with the CEO of Starbucks, and the CEO of Starbucks said, "We don't sell coffee. We sell the experience of sitting down, having coffee with friends and family." And I thought that was such a unique way of looking at it. You know, if you ask most people what does Starbucks do, they say they sell coffee. The CEO of Starbucks said, "No, we don't sell coffee. We sell the experience." And that's something that I think brands should strive for. Yes, ma'am.
I love that.
Me too.
Advice you wish you had followed.
You know what? I was given advice about 20 years ago to start my own business. At the time, I was the CEO. I was the head of a nonprofit organization. I was in my 20s. And when somebody said, "Man, you're putting money in other people's pockets because of the things that you do and the trainings you offer, blah, 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 you need to be in business for yourself. You're enriching everybody but yourself." And although I agreed with that, I was scared to do it. I mean, here I am, I'm in my 20s. My degree, my bachelor's degree was in English. I didn't have a business degree. My master's and doctoral degrees were in theology. Now, I didn't have a business degree. So here's somebody saying, start your own business. I was scared to death to do that. And I think I waited a long time. It's never too late, but I've been doing it now full time for about 10 years. I should have been doing it full time for about 20. So I kind of wish I had taken that advice and jumped out earlier. But as I think about that, I also think I needed those years of experience to help me do what I'm doing in business now. So I don't really have any regrets, but I should have been CEO 20 years ago.
How did you forge forward in your fear?
How did I forge forward? Yeah, the way I did that was I asked myself a very tough question. And interestingly enough, I got this question from Sidney Poitier. He said, if you're afraid of something, ask yourself, what will happen if I fail to do what I'm afraid to do? What will happen to me? What will happen to the people I love? What will happen to my future? What will happen to my bank account? What will happen to my legacy? He said, what will happen if you fail to do that which you're afraid of? He said, and if the what will happen is frightening enough for you, that will help you overcome your fear. And he was absolutely right about that. So I sat down one day and I did just that. I made a list of everything that would go wrong if I didn't pursue my dreams. I made a list of everything that would go wrong if I didn't own my own business, if I did not write books, if I did not coach people. And what I saw scared me. I did not want to live a life of a regret. One of my favorite poems, I don't know the author, but one of my favorite poems is, he dined beneath the moon, he basked beneath the sun, he lived a life of going to do, yet died with nothing done. And that was quoted to me when I was a high school student, and I committed it to memory. And I've always said to myself, I did not want to live a life. I do not want to live a life of regret and having things undone. I would rather try something and fail at it than to look back and say, gee, I wish I had tried that, you know?
Speaking of legacy, when it's all said and done, Dr. Derrick, how do you want to be remembered?
As someone who overcame odds and spent the rest of his life helping others to do the same. I want to be remembered as somebody who approached his life and his work with a degree of humility, but also approached his life and his work with a great sense of pride in what I was able to accomplish. So if I can be remembered as somebody who helped you to believe in yourself, then as the gospel song says, my living shall not be in vain.
How did you raise money to start your business?
How did I raise money to start my business? Did I raise money to start? I don't think I emptied my savings. I went into my own savings. I didn't, this was years before, the GoFundMe and all that stuff. But I emptied out my bank account. The first thing I did was I used the money I had to purchase courses. I would buy courses on how to be a coach and how to get coach certification and things of that nature. So I spent money doing that. And as a result of making those investments, I started getting clients and the business started growing. So I never had a small business loan. I never had an angel investor. I did learn at an early age to start putting away 10% of every paycheck. That's something that I'm really glad I did, by the way. One of my college professors taught me that. He said, you're a believer. I always hear you talking about, God and church and all of this, and you believe in tithing. Tithe to yourself as well. Don't just give 10% to a church. Give 10% to yourself. And so I started doing that actually when I was about 21 years old. So by the time I was ready to launch out on my own, I had a pretty sizable savings account so I could invest in the courses that I needed to invest in to get my business started. A lot of what I've learned has been trial and error. Some of what I've learned has come from leaders and mentors in the business world. Specifically, if you don't mind me giving a shout out, David Newman, who is the one who helped me. I learned about David Newman through the Los Angeles chapter of the National Speakers Association. So David is the one who really helped me to learn how to write proposals for trainings and how to get more high ticket and high fee clients. So I credit David with that. And then the other mentor was more from afar. His name was John Maxwell, the world's leading author and best-selling author on subjects of leadership. So I read and digested everything from John Maxwell. I was personally mentored by David Newman, and I credit the two of them a lot with where I am business-wise. Yes, ma'am.
Dr. Derrick, What is your biggest takeaway from our conversation today? What do you want the audience to leave with?
Biggest takeaway. What I want the audience to leave with is, well, the reason why I wrote the book, Leadership Launch. We've often heard people say, that person is a natural born leader, or she's a natural born leader, he's a natural born leader. And while I do believe there are some leadership qualities that are innate, by and large, leadership is a skill that can be learned and developed if you're willing to work at it. And that's why I wrote the book. It's for people who realize that their leadership skills need to be honed a bit and they're willing to work at it. So I guess what I would want people to leave with today is, even if you don't consider yourself the best leader, even if the people you lead have a lot of criticism about you, don't fret. Leadership is a skill that can be learned and improved upon if you're willing to work at it. So that's where I come in as your coach.
What is the best decision that you've made as a leader?
It happened at the beginning of the pandemic, interestingly enough. The best decision I made as a leader, I noticed that other coaches and other business consultants were going bankrupt as the world shut down with the COVID pandemic. I decided I didn't want to go that route. So the best decision I made was to invest in learning how to do online platforms. I mean, every online platform there is. I became a master of Zoom and Microsoft Teams and GoTo meetings. And I invested money in training myself on all of those. And I completely transitioned my business from in-person training and coaching to virtual training and coaching. And Dr. Francis, I made more money after the pandemic than I was making before that, because, there were a lot of people in my same space who didn't know how to make that leap from not doing in-person training. So and not to knock Uber, but I know many of them are, Uber deliverers and Uber drivers now. I said, no, I still want to do what I'm in business to do. So the best decision I made was to invest time and energy in learning how to conduct online training and classes. And now, even though the world is starting to open up again, I would say 70% of my business now is online. 30% of my business is in person. And many of my clients want a hybrid, but this virtual world is not going away. One thing that the COVID pandemic has done is that it has really pushed us into being able to deliver what we deliver in a virtual way. So that was the best decision I made. My business grew as a result. And while others were going bankrupt, thank you, Jesus, that didn't happen with me. The exact opposite happened with me. So yes, ma'am.
So Dr. Derrick, fill in the blank. Thank you, pandemic, because.
Thank you, pandemic, because it showed me that I was tougher than I thought. It showed me how to be resilient, and it grew my business exponentially. So thank you, pandemic. Yes, ma'am.
Is there a social cause tied to your business?
Social cause or cost? I'm sorry, I didn't.
A cause.
Okay, social cause, yes. Mm-hmm. And part of that is because of my background, having grown up in Little Rock and knowing people who fought in the desegregation battle and being a graduate of an HBCU. For me, I love all people. I love all people. Let me say that first of all. But I feel a special affinity to African Americans who, for many, many, many different reasons, just need some encouragement and need some help along the way. We don't have to get into the history of this country. We know the history of this country. So what I do is I go above and beyond to make sure that I make myself available to young Black would-be entrepreneurs. I make myself available at almost no cost to HBCUs, or very little cost. What I charge other businesses and other schools for appearances, HBCUs never pay what I charge others, because I am a believer in education. And again, that goes back to my principal, Mr. Ward, and the educators he introduced me to. He introduced me to Carter G. Woodson, and I read Miseducation of the Negro when I was in the 6th grade. And so ever since then, I have had a strong commitment to providing education for my people. So that if there is a social cause, that's it. Yes, ma'am.
Talk about an attitude of gratitude, and I want you to have a thank fest.
Oh,
so have at it.
Okay, not to offend anybody else's sensibilities, but this is my list. First and foremost, thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, God. Thank you, Holy Spirit. I know I am where I am because God has never given up on me, and God has placed people in my life over the years at strategic times when I could have gone a different direction. God placed people in my life to keep me on a good path. So first of all, thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Mama, the late Lily Mae Lewis Noble. My mother, I was the youngest of 9. My mother was my first example of unconditional love. She loved me. She loved all of her children, but she had a tendency to dote on me because I was involved in a childhood accident. I was burned severely when I was a little kid. And interestingly enough, the reason why was I bumped into the stove, and on the stove was a hot pot of coffee that spilled over on me, and I had to have like 3 plastic surgeries. My mother never drank coffee again, and she blamed herself, I believe, until the day she died. She blamed herself for my injuries. So I think she just really doted on me because of that. So some of it was guilt, but it was all love. So, but Mom, when I came home in tears because people would make fun of me, my mother said to me, one day you're going to say your name without stuttering. And so every time I speak and say my name, just like I did at the beginning of this podcast, I always remember my mother. So I thank God for her. Thank you, St. John Baptist Church of Little Rock, Arkansas, that nurtured me in my faith growing up. And the man who baptized me is still pastor there. Dr. Edwards is still the pastor there. So I thank God that I had a faith community that wrapped their arms around me. When my mom was gone, all of those women in that church basically became my mother. So even to this day, many of them have passed away, but many of them are still here. And I still call them, Mama Alene and Mama Susan and all of them. So I thank them. Thank you, Morehouse, for providing for me an education that is above and beyond anything I could have gotten at anybody's Ivy League school. And to me, Morehouse is Ivy League. And thank you, Morehouse, for recommitting me to my love for HBCUs. Thank you, pandemic. We already talked about the pandemic. Thank you, Daisy Bates and Melba Patillo Beals and all of the Little Rock 9, the people who made it possible for me to attend Little Rock Central High School. And thank you to current clients and future clients for entrusting your life and your business and your success into my hands. For that, I am eternally grateful. Yeah, you're about to make me cry with these questions, Doc. Come on now.
What do you need right now that you don't have to move the needle forward?
Nothing, really. Once upon a time, if you had asked me that question, maybe a year ago, if you had asked me that question, I would have said more PR and more publicity. I've learned the hard way that that's not necessarily what I need. But I don't think I'm lacking anything, particularly over the past couple of months. I repeat business and retainer clients and things of that nature. I'm just a blessed man. So I don't think I'm lacking anything. There's really not anything I need. Of course, there are things that I could you always want. I wouldn't mind having a nice home on the ocean in Hawaii. I'm not there yet. So I'll settle for Mexico, which is where I am now. I have a beautiful home here in Mexico. But yeah, I don't think there's anything that I'm lacking or anything that I need. I'm content.
And what does self-care look like for you, Dr. Derrick?
Good question. Self-care for me looks like divorcing my longtime love, Oreo cookies. I got to the point where I was really, really unhealthy and I was pre-diabetic and I was overweight. And my doctor just had what we call a come to Jesus meeting with me and said, no, you are very unhealthy. And if you continue this, you'll be dead within a year. And that woke me up. So I subsequently lost 45 pounds and have kept them off. Self-care to me looks like moving my body at least 30 minutes every day. Sometimes that means going to the gym and working out and lifting. Sometimes that means walking on the treadmill. Sometimes that means working on the elliptical machine. Sometimes it means just walking through the neighborhood. But I move my body every day for at least 30 minutes. And a lot of times it's a full hour. So I enjoy that. So that's what self-care looks like to me. Self-care also looks like no longer having a cabinet filled with cookies and cakes and pies and things of that nature. I still have a sweet tooth, but I've learned that I can get that from fruit. And I can honestly say, I joke about it, but I can honestly say I don't miss all the sweets. A cold grapes do for me what Oreo cookies used to do for me. So I plan on being here for a long time and I've got to take care of my body. And so self-care means that. Self-care also means recognizing the cues that my body sends me. There are times when my body lets me know it needs a break. We need to just sit down for a while. We need a nap, or we need a weekend getaway. I've learned to listen to my body. And so when I'm feeling fatigued or when I'm not feeling inspired, it's time for me to get away and break away. So self-care means taking care of myself physically and not feeling guilty about that. Also, self-care means learning how to say no and not feel guilty about saying no. Because sometimes those of us who love to help people to the point where we give all that we have and we have nothing left for ourselves. And that's not healthy. As I often share with people, when you fly on an airplane, some of the advice they give you that sounds counterintuitive. They say, if you're flying with a child, put your mask on first and then put now that sounds selfish on the surface. Well, shouldn't I take care of my kid? No, if you're not in position to take care of yourself, you won't be able to take care of your child. So put your mask on first. That's what self-care looks like. So every day I put my mask on first, metaphorically, so I can take care of other people. Yes, ma'am.
What problem exists in the world today that you would like to solve?
Gosh, which one do I choose? I'm torn between gun violence and police violence toward people of color. And I would probably rank both of those as number one. I could say so much about that, but it's heartbreaking to me to have to walk through my own neighborhood and worry that a police officer is going to come up to me and ask me who I am and where I'm going. And maybe they don't like the tone of my voice. Maybe they don't like the bass in my voice. And I end up being a movement with people crying at my grave. It hurts me. It doesn't just hurt me. It angers me. It ticks me off that after all of our struggle and fight, we still have to deal with the fact that our Black skin is considered a weapon. How can I be disarmed when you see my skin as a weapon? So I've gotten to the point where I can't even watch the news reports anymore. Another Black person was killed, another Black person was shot by police. I can't even watch them anymore. I feel like I'm suffering from PTSD in this country. And I don't know if I knew how to solve that problem, I'd be a much wealthier man. But I don't know what the solution is. I don't know if the United States of America will ever get over its inherent racism. I don't know because this country was built on a legacy of supremacy of one race over the other. I mean, people came over and kicked people off this land and then said they discovered it. How do you discover something that somebody's already living on? This country was built on a foundation of racial superiority and racial inferiority. So I don't know if we'll ever get past that. And also with the other issue, America has become so fascinated with guns. And I don't know how we have painted Jesus as this conservative Republican who wants you to keep your military grade weaponry. That's not the Jesus I know. But we have painted Christian belief as, you have to fight for your gun rights. It is a sick country that is more willing to fight about drag shows than it is to fight about children being killed daily in our schools. I'm glad that the ones I raised are adults now, because I would have to homeschool. I am so afraid for America in so many ways with the gun violence and the violence toward people of color. I don't know what to do about it, but wrap my arms around those people who are dealing with it and pray with them and pray for them.
If you conducted this interview, what is the one question you would have asked yourself? I want you to ask the question and answer it.
What didn't you ask me? You covered just about everything. What would I have asked myself? Maybe I would have asked, well, no, you asked that question. I was about to say, maybe I would have asked, what is your biggest regret? What's your biggest mistake? But you asked me that. You said it in a different way. You said, is there a decision that you wish you would have made earlier? So other than that, I can't think of anything that maybe other than who's your all-time favorite sports team. I'm a sports lover. So you didn't say anything about my Lakers, my Clippers, or my Dodgers. So I probably would say, Derrick, let's talk about sports a little bit. And after your sports question, who's your favorite artist of all time? And that would be Stevie Wonder. But maybe that's another interview for another day. So Dodgers, Lakers, Clippers, and Stevie.
Well, we've come to the part of our interview. It's called Fun Facts Lightning Round or Rapid Round of Fun. And I'm going to ask you a series of questions. And one of them was your favorite artist, so I won't ask you that.
Okay.
And if you desire not to answer something, feel free to say pass. Are you
Sure.
ready for the rapid round of fun?
Shoot away. Go for it. Yes,
Your
ma'am.
first job.
Waiter at Casa Bonita, a Mexican restaurant in Little Rock, Arkansas.
Your ideal car.
My ideal car, a Honda Pilot SUV.
Your favorite comfort food.
Favorite comfort food, tacos. Crunchy tacos, by the way.
The last movie you saw.
The last movie I saw, what was the last movie I saw? The Woman King, which was great, by the way. Yeah.
You relax doing what?
Listening to jazz in my recliner with the lights off.
Your favorite dance song.
Favorite dance song, Celebration by Kool and the Gang.
What food you eat every week, no matter what?
Bacon. Don't tell my doctor.
Workout or hit the couch?
Workout.
Dr. Derrick Noble, thank you so much for joining us on Black Entrepreneur Experience Podcast. Before we let you go, share with our audience the best way for them to connect with you and to do business with you, and feel free to leave all your social media handles.
Thank you. Best way to reach out to me is through my website. It's DerrickLewisNoble.com, and that's DerrickLewisNoble.com. Also, the email on that website will take you to Derrick@DerrickLewisNoble.com. So that's the best way to reach me. I'm on every social media platform. I'm Dr. Derrick Noble on Instagram, Dr. Derrick Noble on Facebook, Dr. Derrick Noble on LinkedIn. I recently deleted my Twitter account, so you can't reach me through Twitter, but all the other social media handles are there. Oh, and my YouTube channel and my TikTok channel are also Dr. Derrick Noble. So reach out to me. I reach back, follow me, I follow you back, and I look forward to speaking with you and working with you.
Thank you, Dr. Derrick. That is a wrap.
Thank you for listening and subscribing to Black Entrepreneur Experience. We would love for you to leave a review and rating on iTunes and share with your friends. For show notes and more episodes, go to www.beepodcast.com. Join us next Wednesday, and remember, green is the new black. So keep your bank accounts and your business in the black.
Hello, B Nation. Dr. Frances Richards here, and we have an exciting opportunity for you to make your voices heard and win big at Black Entrepreneur Experience Podcast, aka Beepodcast. We're constantly striving to bring you the most engaging and insightful content, but we need your help to make it even better. We want to get to know you, our incredible listeners, on a deeper level. That's why we've launched a short survey to gather your valuable feedback. By taking just a few moments to complete our survey, you'll have the chance to win an Amazon gift card. To view the contest rules and complete the survey, please visit our official website at drfrancesrichards.com/survey. The survey is also in our show notes. Hurry though, the contest deadline is approaching fast. Don't miss out on this exciting opportunity to give us your feedback and win fantastic prizes. Head over to drfrancesrichards.com, survey now, and thank you for your valuable input. The survey is also in the show notes. Thank you.